Bienvenido! Hey, everybody. This is El Gringo Loco. You might hear people call me tonight by my nickname, Ernie, which is short for my first name, El. We've got a topic tonight that a lot of people have been talking about lately on Twitter. Some people have been wanting some tips for match writing, so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I myself have been e-fetting for 20 or more years now, since the 1990s, and all throughout that time, it's been off and on writing matches. Adrian Cochran is also here. He's been e-fetting since 2005, and most of his time has been spent writing matches. He's been head match writer for several different role-play feds. We've got Mike Leifer here, who's one of the people who's got some questions about how does he get better at writing matches. And we've got Callum as well, who handles Josh Kennedy, and he's got some questions too for improving on writing matches. And he's kind of new, actually. Callum's only been around in e-fetting since, was it 2015?
Yeah, 2014, 2015, about.
So that's 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And even that's been on and off, so it's been about 2 consecutive years in total, I think.
Yeah. So welcome to e-fetting.
Well, yeah, welcome to e-fetting, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
How do you like it so
Adrian?
far?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so I guess we've gotten our introductions out of the way, unless, Adrian, you want to say hello?
Yeah, I just said hello a second ago. I mean, you know.
Well, I mean, you said hi to Callum, but...
Oh, hi Ernie, hi Mike, hi Callum. Hi everybody listening to this.
Well, I was talking about the listeners. Say hi to the listeners, but hi Adrian, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I ate some lunch a few minutes ago, and just ready to go ahead and answer some questions for these guys.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess we can go ahead and get started tackling our topic. I do want to really quickly, before we start giving out our own personal tips or anything like that, I want to point out that xwabattlezone.com, if you go to xwabattlezone.com and go to their handbook subforum, and then scroll down, they've got an excellent thread with some really good tips on match writing in there as well.
Where can we find that link, Ernie? Can we find it in the description?
Yeah, if Adrian will be kind enough to pop that in there when he uploads the video.
Yeah, I will have that.
How convenient
I'll have
that is for our
I'll have that.
listeners.
Yeah, it's a really good guide, actually. I've used it for the handful of matches I've written up to now, because I've only written about 5 matches total ever, but yeah.
And how they turned out?
Well, you're the guys that are reading them, so I can't speak to you on that. Some of them I've not been so proud of. Some of them are okay, so mixed bag.
Well, you're gonna find that, honestly, like, you're gonna find that all throughout your tenure in e-fetting, and it's gonna be it's gonna apply to role plays. It's gonna apply to on-card segments. It's gonna apply to matches that you write. It's gonna apply to tweets.
Yeah, I mean,
it's something I've already accepted with the game. It's all up and down, and how you feel about one thing from one day to another is just completely subjective. I mean, I've looked back on things that I've written and not felt so proud of at the time and gone, yeah, that was actually much better than I was expecting. So,
yeah,
You know what's
Dean's
the
going to
most
happen.
important part?
What's
Yeah.
that?
That you're having fun.
Yeah, that's rule number 1, right?
Yes.
well, yeah,
One.
XWA decided to put it at rule number 8 and say it's rule number 1, but yeah, it is the
Rule
most
number
important
1
rule
by
of
heart.
e-fetting.
That was that was fantastic, though. I honestly like. I wonder if they did that on purpose.
They probably
because
did.
that was. That was. Yeah, I think so. I think that was done on purpose, and I think it was like a great. If not, then it was. It just worked out perfectly. But, yeah, I mean, have fun. One thing is too, not every match has to be 5-star main event material, and
Unless I'm writing it, wink, wink.
what was that?
I disagree.
No, I've written some very, very low star matches because they were squashes. But yeah, every match isn't meant to be a 5-star match. And I think this is one of the things that we were kind of addressing with Lifer on Twitter. Was he was talking about, shouldn't every match be like 4,000 or 5,000 words? Because he was, and the way I kind of addressed it to him is, think of it this way. You know how like Raw and SmackDown are usually like 2 hours long? A Fed like Redemption, for an example, since 3/4 of us are from that Fed, has 12 matches usually per show that they're trying to fit into 2 hours of television time. So obviously you're gonna have a couple of matches.
2 hours?
I would think maybe
really...
Redemption might actually have 3 because of the number of matches. But you have to think, not every match can be 30 minutes long if they're trying to fit this on a television program.
Right.
Yeah. Plus, you have to factor in segments, and then if you're talking about like a time slot, then you're talking about commercial breaks too, probably depending on how and where it's airing and stuff like that. But that's I think that's a little bit kind of beside the point for our purposes tonight. But it is a good way to look at things, Adrian. And the point that I wanted to make though was that different matches, even on like a 2 or 3 hour show, different matches have a different purpose. For one thing, based on match links, different matches have different purposes. And another thing is, for me, and I know that there are some places that apply some sort of a count, a ratio of word count to time elapsed. But for me, that's not really always the case. That's how it works because of something that we talked about last time, that unfortunately the recording was confiscated by the Men in Black.
Which is why I'm running the show this time.
Yeah, because we've got Adrian located in his top secret bunker where nobody can find him.
Top secret lair.
We can't tell, then it won't be top secret. But Adrian is in a top secret bunker where nobody can find him. So that this time we get to get this out and not have it classified by the Men in Black.
Did we encrypt this video to make sure that no one can find?
Adrian?
Yes.
You're handling this.
Yes.
Did you encrypt it? Okay,
yes. Good. We're also getting off the rails, guys.
Sorry.
So anyway, one of the things that we had mentioned is, writing styles. Some writers are wordier than others, but also in terms of moves, sometimes a move will take longer than a description, or sometimes there will be some extra, maybe like a rest period between moves that, you might fill in a little bit, but, how much do you...
Should we, I'll just be the straw man here and say, should we just go from one move to the other?
No.
No.
Don't just make it a list of moves.
No. You don't. No one wants to read that.
No. Don't just make it a list of moves.
Right.
Don't just make it a list of moves. Have include like a variety of things. Include one of the tips on the XWA thread is to include emotions, but aside from emotions, you can include other types of feelings, right? Physical feeling of exhaustion, for one thing, or maybe somebody's pumped up with adrenaline. The crowd gets behind somebody, and that's another thing that you can include. You can include the crowd getting behind somebody, the crowd booing, reactions from the crowd, include stuff from the referee, particularly include anything that the characters will do to help their personality come across.
But you don't have to talk about the crowd, right? Like, if you're not really like into that, because you don't
have to. You don't have to, but I think that there are going to be parts where you're probably going to want to.
Yeah.
I think like a good 60% of my matches usually involve some sort of the crowd doing something during the match. There are going to be matches where you're right, especially matches such as squash matches, where you're probably not going to include a whole lot of details of what's going on because it's usually just something and it's like this match is just something we're just trying to hurry up and get over with. But it's usually good for...
If you overdo it, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, you don't want to overdo it.
The crowd cheered after this suplex. The crowd cheered after this punch.
Yeah, and it becomes, if it's like after every move, then it's like a bit like unnatural, and it's like, yeah, probably.
That's what I'm saying.
That's probably just filler, isn't it? That comes across like stalling for word count, really, more than anything.
It does, honestly.
Yeah, that's doing something like that would. But I mean, like, you can have a situation where, Mike and Callum are in a match, and you can say something like, when you're doing them trading punches, you could put in like a real quick line about, the crowd cheering after punch, or the crowd goes back and forth with every punch. Oh. There you go, Lifer. Great job, Lifer. So the crowd goes back and forth, with each punch, and cheering for Lifer or booing for Callum. And you set you
don't have to mention it every
set
time.
up, but you don't put it in separately every time. Like Lifer punches Callum, the crowd cheers. Callum punches Lifer, the crowd boos.
The crowd boos.
But you can set it up that like, okay, this is what's going to happen, and then that'll stay in the reader's mind, because the first thing that you have to think of is what's your medium that you're working in, and we're not, this isn't anything that's actually being acted out. It's something that people are going to read. So
people can fill in the blanks sometimes, like with that sort of thing. Like,
yeah,
if he mentioned it once, it probably applies to the whole thing,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's probably an important consideration in matches in general, like just readability and how it comes across, because you've got to understand how it's being viewed by other people.
You also have to just make it so that it's going to be enjoyable to read. I mean, if you start writing matches where it's like everyone is bored reading your list of moves, and or you do stuff like that, you're going to probably have people who read your show and all they're going to do is skip to the winner, and they might miss some cool storyline you did in the middle of the match. Like, let's say Calum and Mike are over here having a match, and Adrian runs in and just Adrian cutters Mike and gives Calum the win.
Why you got an Adrian cutter me?
Hypothetical, Mike.
Because you sold his wonton.
But
because you sold his wontons, Mike.
If you write such boring matches to the point where that's what everyone's expecting from you, they're probably going to just skip to the ending, see that Calum won the match, and don't even notice the run-in. So if you really want to build your storyline...
Yeah, because of the Adrian Hilton, of course.
Mike, I think you're worrying way too much about this.
I'm sorry.
Anyway.
Mike made me lose my train of thought.
I apologize.
Well, so you were talking about, if you have an angle in the middle of the match. Honestly, like, if you come in and make him win, and it's right there at the end, a lot of people will like notice who won, and they'll maybe backtrack to see the ending. And I think if in the scenario you're talking about, you'd be in the ending. But if you come in the middle, give him an Adrian cutter. I almost said a Lifer cutter. An Adrian cutter.
That's not a thing.
Yeah, give him an Adrian cutter and then leave, and then the match goes on. I think people might miss that. But that gets back into, talking about the run-in, that ties back into what we were saying earlier about there being different purposes for matches. So, one thing that a match might be meant to do is just to drive a storyline forward, right? And a run-in might be a part of that. And run-ins can have any variety. It doesn't necessarily have to be where you come in and give him the cutter. It can be a situation where
I just come out and just watch the match from the sidelines and just be completely in his head.
Yeah, or like come out and distract him, and he gets rolled up from behind for the pin.
To that point, you should talk to the people in the match, talk to the owner at least, and make sure like everybody's on the same page. Make sure you get the spots that you're supposed to get for the match. You know what I mean?
This is something I do. First and foremost, whenever I'm writing a redemption match, I'm usually told straight up by Steve, hey, this is who's winning, and, this is the kind of match. Like, for an example, last show, I wrote Adrian versus Aurora Graves, and the instructions were Adrian gets the win cleanly and make it look like it could have been a main event. So
I'm just saying, like not everybody would be that upfront about it. I feel like sometimes, as a writer, you gotta like go up to the person and be like, "So, how do you want your character to be in this match? Do you want them to be friendly with their opponent?
Which
do you want them
you
to
should
be
also
vicious?"
do that. Like I'm usually in constant communication with the handlers whose matches I'm writing. For an example, like before we actually got started recording today, and before Ernie and Caleb got on the line, I actually was talking to Mike about a match that I'm writing that he's in, and I'm like, hey, if you got any spots you want for me, let me know.
Right.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be moves that you want. From a handler standpoint, if somebody else is running your match and somebody says, hey, what spots you want in it, think about not just moves that you want your person to do. Think about maybe like a move that you want your person to take, situations that you want to have happen, different things like, whether or not you want your character to, showboat a little bit or play to the crowd or, whatever. But so some of these things that we're talking about now tie back into as well, making sure to get the personalities over, which is a huge, this is going to be a huge part of the match writing is the personalities, getting the personalities over. Because remember, in professional wrestling, just like in e-fetting, it's storytelling and it's about the characters, right? So
I feel about storytelling. I feel like storytelling is more important than the moves themselves, almost.
Right. The moves are going to be. The moves are going to be a part of the storytelling. They're going to be a part of the characters, but there's going to be more to it than just the moves. So think of different ways that you can make these personalities come alive. Get across what type of person this is. Get across if somebody's got a gimmick.
Check their contracts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Usually, bio rating is something I always do when I'm writing a match. Like for an example, I'm writing a big old big tag gauntlet match, and I've got so many profiles up right now in my windows. It's not even crazy.
You have to do. You got to keep all the profiles up.
I keep referencing back to like, okay, what do I need to know about Martin Karloff? What do I need to know about Coda? What do I need to know about Jubilees or stuff like that?
Because if you set a character in a way that they wouldn't act in real life, like if you made a high flyer do like a gorilla press, I feel like the handler would get kind of upset.
Well, it
depends. Like
something that depends on situational stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that's going to come into play when you're writing a match, because not every match is going to be the same, and not everything is going to follow the same. So this is something that we haven't talked about in a lot of depth yet. But for one thing, like if like Max Hopper is going against Adrian Cochran. Adrian, how big is Adrian Cochran?
190 pounds.
190 pounds. Max Hopper is a high flyer.
That's pretty big, right?
Adrian Cochran that's kind of on the small end.
Okay.
But,
yeah, he's a cruiserweight.
I know you're making a joke, but for the
listeners, yeah.
Yeah. because Callum, I think, was sitting over there. He's new to e-fighting. He was sitting over there going, "Oh, yeah, maybe that is kind of big."
I'm sorry.
I'm kind of aware of that. I mean, I've intentionally made Josh very scrawny. He's 174 pounds, and that's partly just to fit with his pig base, but it's also just kind of how I wanted him to be. This very skinny sort of.
Yeah, my
scrawny
character's always been a cruiserweight.
Maybe another day we could have like character development, not like character development, but like how do you design a character?
Yeah,
I've thought about doing for years. I've thought about doing that.
That
For
would be another.
podcast.
That would be another show. That would be another show, not this one.
Oh, that's it. Another show. That's it.
But putting weight into a match is clearly important in how you pace it and how to make everyone act.
Absolutely.
Exactly. But so Adrian, you've got a high flying character, right?
Yeah.
At 190 pounds, I'm going to kind of go out on a limb and assume, although you could be, more of a submission guy.
Sometimes you can't assume that. You got to look at the.
No,
Yes, you
he's-
can't.
he's-
You
he's-
can't assume because he could be more of a submission guy or
He could easily be a brawler. He could
Yeah,
easily be a brawler.
But
So
yeah, high
this is like
flying
something that-
technical is how I have him listed.
Yeah, like Pat Gordon Jr. was like 5'11" and a half, and usually somewhere between 230 and 240 pounds. And sometimes people would write him doing like a sky twister press or something like that. I'm like, no, the guy's not a high flyer. He's a brawler
Exactly.
and a submissions guy.
So
So
you got to keep that in mind.
yeah, so check that out. But I'm saying like for a high flyer versus a high flyer, and Max Hopper outweighs Adrian Cochran by a good 30 pounds probably, and
Look at you doing that math.
yeah, so by 30 pounds, so that's gonna open up a lot more of offensive options for Max Hopper. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well. That you might see like Max Hopper where maybe he's not power bombing people when he's going against people who are, close to 300 pounds. Maybe, going against somebody who's like 190, maybe he'll go ahead and bust out a power bomb on
Adrian.
on Adrian Cochran or on Callum. And there are situations too where if you have high flyers going against one another, if they've got some kind of technical acumen.
I feel like depending on the personalities, like they could be high flyers and play completely different.
Yeah.
Well, that was actually. Sorry. That was actually something in one of the feds I used to be in, and
Oh, really?
they had a high flying character who actually was afraid of the top rope. He'd had a whole storyline where I think he'd botched a move and injured himself temporarily, took himself out, came back, and wouldn't go from the top rope anymore. So he was hitting high flying moves as springboard moves and from the middle rope instead.
That's a good
That
story.
makes
I
sense.
like
That makes sense.
Kind of
Yeah,
melding
that's
that
actually
with
an interesting
more,
story to tell.
A little bit of a more technical moveset as well. It was
At least for a while, yeah.
yeah,
Makes a lot of sense.
but the problem was not everyone was clued in, and including some of the staff in the Fed. Not to bash anyone, but I'd spoken to the handler himself, and he expressed a little bit of frustration at the fact that he wasn't always being written like that, because not everyone who was writing these matches was paying attention to that side of things and was writing him how they'd known him before. It was
that's
a really key part to his character.
That's why you always have to, pay close attention to the storylines.
And put that stuff in the profile.
Storylines, yes.
Put that stuff in the profile.
Yeah,
storylines and the characters.
And read the past promo.
yes.
We talked about that too.
Yeah,
we did on the
yeah.
first show, but we didn't yet on this one.
No, yeah, you know what I meant.
Yeah, I've been doing that for matches just to get a sort of vague sense of how the two characters will interact with each other, whether they're respectful of each other or whether they dislike each other or whatever the real dynamic is. And it gives you a sense of their motivations as well. So
It does.
I've
But
found
another Another good tip, though, while we're talking about this, I just want to make sure to throw this out there. Another good tip, if as you're reading those promos, is to maybe look for stuff that the announcers can talk about. That that you're writing a match between Lifer and Adrian, and Lifer said something particularly nasty about Adrian's mother or something like that. So maybe have the announcers talk about that in order to build up the heat when they're doing their entrances or something like that.
Oh, and Caleb, you want to talk about...
Callum doesn't come out and interfere in this match, is what the commentary would say.
Callum, you want to talk about driving up word counts? I use commentators for that all the time. I've written squash matches that still hit Steve's 950 mark just by using the commentators, which is another thing. The commentators...
That's crazy. I've tried to use the commentators as a vague sort of, just to push the characters a little bit and give little factoids if I had anything that was worth using. But yeah, using that to push a squash match up to 950 words, to have that much to say for, and that I'd have trouble with that, I think.
But you can't go off of subject.
Yeah.
In these commentaries, like sometimes they'll go off into their own world and make like jokes and stuff. And I feel like you got to be focused on.
Yeah,
even a heel.
Young Cubs versus Matt Mark
Generally,
Storm.
yes, but if I suppose it's a tough line to walk, but I've seen it work with, I think, certain comedic characters where they've sort of turned it into jokes about one of the more comedic characters in a match.
Yeah,
sometimes they overdo it. In my opinion, I could be wrong.
No, I definitely agree with you there. There are points where the commentary gets irrelevant, and that.
Yeah.
I guess it's like an attempt at being entertaining and trying to make it more readable, perhaps.
And that's fine. It's
It's
just not my cup of tea, I guess.
Well, it was Mark Storm versus the Young Cubs that I did this on, and I just basically, and keep in mind the entrances and even the stuff that happened after the bell all counted towards that 950 mark. But it's but basically what I did was whenever they were coming out to the ring, I made sure I really talked about everything that was going on about the characters to try to really not only A, sell it to them, but also B, try to make sure that it was actually more of a link that you were kind of wanting for it, because of the fact that even though it was a squash match and the actions were basically 3 moves and the match was over, it was it still looked like a full thing for the show.
It's relevant, so long as it's relevant.
Yeah. I just find trouble having that much relevant to say about a match that short.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
so is there anything in particular you use to sort of keep that commentary on track for that when you didn't really have such a complicated story to try and push with the commentators?
Well, the first thing that I actually had them talking about in this particular instance was the fact that the combined weight of the Young Cubs. What was it? I'm pulling it up real quick. Yeah, the combined weight was 281 pounds for the Young Cubs, and it's first the first thing I had was one of them going, "Wait, are you serious? They combined for that much?" And Mark Storm came out and they're like, "Hang on, wait a minute. There's a 61 pound weight difference between both sides of this, and it's a handicap match." And I had them talking about, not everyone who's not all the male characters are all that large anymore. Adrian's 190, Alex Aurelio is, in 100s. Josh Kennedy is that low, and he started prattling off that, these, the other tag teams combined for, this much and stuff like that, all before the bell actually sounded.
Yeah.
But did it seem overkill though on the way? Like I don't mean to sound mean,
hey, I want to hit that 950 mark for Steve.
I'm just saying, I don't think word count is super important.
It is when the Fed actually has a line saying, "Hey, get to this mark."
I'm just saying, in general, the rule of thumb.
In general, absolutely.
No.
Yeah. In my opinion, I feel like You just try to make it like the natural size it should be instead of like.
Yeah, every match has a natural endpoint.
Yeah. Exactly.
And it's, you got to kind of, I think, feel that out while you're writing it.
I'm sorry for stepping on your toes, Adrian. I'm just trying to make a point, that's all.
Yeah, no, well...
It's completely shitting on my match.
I'm looking at it now, and it reads in a way that makes sense, but when you hear it in theory, what it is that, like a three-move squash match that's been buffed up to 950 words with commentary, that doesn't sound like...
Yeah.
I mean, if it works.
Yeah, if you're in the match, it made it work.
When it reads quite very well.
That's and that's the thing, is because any piece of writing is going to have a natural endpoint to it. Now, I'm not going to contend that Adrian went over what was the natural endpoint. I'm not getting into that. But especially without having read the match, I'm not going to get into that. Is there a link to that?
Sending you to via Skype.
I'll link up now.
Oh, he's got it already.
I've actually... there's a match I wrote on that show as well. 2 matches.
Now, yeah, if it does not seem to you like it has dragged on and gone on too long, then chances are it's probably not gone beyond the natural endpoint.
I agree.
It's match 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Match
a lot
5.
of scrolling.
Yeah, there is.
Now, who is it that I'm looking for? There's the opening match.
I wrote that one too. I wrote that one too. It's match 5, the Young Cubs versus
Match
Mark
5
Storm.
was the handicap, yeah.
I bet you never guessed who plays Adrian Cochran, Ernie.
Is it you, Lifer?
It is not. It is actually Adrian.
Is it an android from Best Buy?
I hate you guys so much.
Rumors.
I'm sorry, people aren't going to get... We had
Very well.
like a 2-hour conversation, I think, before we started recording this, and that's one of the inside jokes that came from, like when I mentioned Lifer stealing his wontons earlier. There's an inside joke, but
we're getting off track.
Yeah. So
Get back on track.
Anyway, every piece of writing, every match, every just like a movie. If you go to see a movie, right, it's going to have a natural endpoint, and if it goes beyond, then you're going to say what? You're going to say that it dragged a little. You're going to either say that it dragged a little in the middle, or you're going to say that it was well, not if it goes beyond. If it doesn't get there, then yeah, you'll say it ended too quickly. But if it goes beyond the natural endpoint, then you'll say that it
dragged, yeah.
It was anticlimactic or something like that, or it drags in the middle, or it's slow to get started, or something like that.
And you said every match has a natural end, but I feel like every match has a natural beginning and a natural middle too. Like
yeah.
Yeah, it's the entrances. That's the natural beginning.
I mean, like at the beginning of the match, you have
entrances aren't always the beginning, though, right?
True.
No, not necessarily.
No. Sometimes it's the promo.
Sometimes it's an attack.
But sometimes it's an attack. Maybe sometimes it's like the announcers talking about the match and the storyline. If Callum and I have been feuding, and it's pay-per-view time. You know what I'm saying? Maybe we'll spend some time talking with the announcers, recapping the feud, to build up the story. Yeah.
I feel like that's probably not done a whole lot in e-fetting. The more, because that's something that's obviously done a lot by actual wrestling going on, but I don't think that's something that e-fetting does a whole lot.
But talking about the,
it could be done though.
I
could be done
always,
more.
Yeah, I always do that. If there for a feud, or even without a feud, like I try to, like I say, pay attention to characters, pay attention to storylines. When I was writing for Fight 1, I would always ask Sean Schofield ran Fight 1. My first question to him, anytime he gave me a match to write, was, is there any specific, any storylines to put over? And he would say, no storyline, just, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I'd be like, well, what's this person been up to? Oh, they've been doing this. Okay, what's the other person been up to? Oh, they've been doing this, and this. And maybe I should have, maybe I should have, at some point figured out, not to just say, any storyline to put over and just go straight to asking. Because, it would, once I asked in the right way, he would tell me what I wanted to know, and then I'd come out and I would, say, I'd have something, I'd have something to use. And so then, the announcers are talking, and they're talking about, stuff like, oh, what could this mean when to this person or that one, or what's this person been doing lately, or that person, so that I'm always trying to put over more than just the match in front of me, the ongoing storyline, the characters, stuff like, whatever. So you find different things for the announcers to talk about before, during the entrances. Sometimes you might save something until later, maybe, if you know that Adrian's going to do a run-in and he's going to drop kick me and Callum is going to pin me, then I might mention at the beginning.
I sure hope Adrian doesn't do a run-in tonight.
Not that obvious. Not that obvious. But I might mention something about, in the beginning I might mention something about how Adrian and I have been feuding, or maybe I talk about, something else that's going on with my character, and I leave that part till...
He must be, after everything that happened with him and Adrian.
Yeah, I might save that whole part until he actually does the run-in, and then be like, and that's your choice. You can do it either way, and it's probably going to
both ways are correct. Both ways are correct.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like a fielder's choice, to make a baseball term. You call it rounders.
No, we no. We don't really.
Cricket?
Baseball.
Cricket's close enough, maybe? I don't know.
Kind of.
Anyway, but did you guys quit? When did you guys quit calling it rounders?
No, it's just rounders is kind of like it's more like a. Well, yeah, I can't remember the. It's like the kid version. It's not really anything like baseball.
So anyway,
off the rails again.
Anyway, yeah.
So anyway, well, that's the best I can play is the kid version. But so anyway, but the point being is it's a choice that you can make. You can choose how to handle that, when to reveal the details, and it's the situation is don't necessarily be too detailed with everything. Choose the relevant and important details, and choose when you reveal different details. What should be kind of like a big surprise and big reveal? What should be something that's going to set up something else later down the road?
Because if you're going to points, you don't need to write down, and so tightened his fist and raised his arm and swung his arm, like you know what I mean, like.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Oh, I could write 2 pages on Adrian's dropkicks. Don't even get me started.
No, but I'm
but would anybody want to read it?
That's the point.
Yes, they will.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I want to read a full-page dropkick. I'll read a full-page armbar, but I don't know about a full-page dropkick.
In all seriousness, a submission makes sense to put description for, because that's going on for a long time. But
Well, and see, there's different stuff that's going to happen during the submission hold too. For
that's
you
what
to
I'm saying. That's what I mean. But a punch is a punch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But always remember that what you're doing is you're trying to entertain. You're trying to tell a story. You're trying to either build drama and create dramatic moments, or maybe you're trying to do something comedic. Think about what your goal is, and this is something that we've gotten way too. I wanted to start out the show with this, and we've gotten way into this now. But rule number 1 on the XWA thing is start at the end. And this is where I really wanted to start, was by saying start. Let's start our tips by saying start at the end.
Well, I never
Just
really
say start at the end, at the beginning.
The thing of it
But,
is the way they worded that. I think we talked about this last time, that on the episode that will never ever apparently hear the words of the public, ears of the public. It's the fact that I feel like they're trying to say, hey, write the ending, then write to the ending. I just have always had the mindset that the first thing you should do whenever you start writing a match is plot out the ending in your head, but then just start writing until you get to a point where it's like, okay, I can pretty much just write the ending from right here. Like, if I know
That's
that a
how I
match
do.
is going to end with a move from the top rope, I know that the end point that I'm eventually, hey, you know what, I can throw the ending right here, is whenever I have the person who's going to get pinned on the ground and the other person standing up, and they're looking at the top rope, and that's when you can write the ending right there.
Yeah.
And keep
So that's-
character.
I think that's a subjective thing. Some people will probably just like to have the finish written up in full to begin with, and then work backwards. And some will prefer to do it your way, as you were saying, Adrian. But
Right.
And you
I
can do
think
that.
both ways are valid. Really, it's just
Yeah.
I think it's just whatever works for you. Really.
Yeah, exactly. But the whole point is to know where you're going with the story. That's the whole point. Whether you plan it out in your head, which is what I do too. I'm with Adrian on this. But some people will write it out, and that's fine. If you want to have it written out first, do that too. But and maybe that'll be a good way for you to get the ball rolling, because sometimes it's really hard to sit there and stare at a blank screen trying to figure out what to write and how to start things off.
The beginning is the hardest part.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but know where the match is going, know what story you're going to tell, and that's going to affect, just that in itself is going to affect a lot of things in how you write the match. If you want both people to come out looking close, then you'll probably end up giving like a little bit more offense, or maybe like one or two more signature spots to the person who loses, to try to make them look a little bit better.
Which is a point that I made on the Lost episode, was the fact that I typically, if you ignore the endings to every match that I write, usually the person you see having the most control of the match, even if it's like a 55-45 split, is probably going to be the one who ends up taking a pin later on in the match.
But at the same time, you gotta mix it up sometimes. You gotta...
Well, I'm trying to make sure that the
That's
loser of
because
this
you don't
match...
want people to be able to figure out.
Yeah, if it becomes formulaic, it's easy to predict.
Well, yeah, but the
like
thing
the
of it is,
John
I also
Cena
gotta sell
effect.
I gotta sell the loser as a competitive person still, and that's usually why I
Yeah.
do it. I
But
don't
there's
really,
the
Yeah.
John Cena effect.
Giving them more control and giving them more spots is usually a good way of doing it.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
it's not. I'm not trying to be unpredictable. I'm trying to make sure the handlers are happy.
Yeah,
I
See,
say,
like,
like a little bit of variation wouldn't hurt. That's all I'm trying to say.
no, and
it's just. as
and
long
you're
as
right,
people-
because you don't like Callum said, you don't want to become formulaic and become too predictable.
Right.
So, which is, that's another story for another time. I'll tell you guys about it later, I guess. But anyway, you do want to maybe not become too predictable. But there are different ways that you can, even if the person doesn't have control most of the time, there's still different ways that you can even it out, maybe by giving them some of the bigger spots or whatever.
Yeah.
Different things that you can do. But back to starting with knowing what your ending is going to be, knowing where the story is going to go. So what I usually do is I usually like to know what my ending is going to be. And then one of the things that they suggest on there that some people do, I don't know a lot of people do it, but some people do. Shay, who used to be an XWA in HKW and is now in NBW, he likes to map out move by move. For me, I tend to just have kind of like some milestone markers of spots that I want to get to.
That's what I was gonna say. is moving from spot to spot. Like you have a few spots in mind. Can you just move from spot to spot? Is that okay? Is that weird?
Well, I mean, you're not gonna just.
You don't want to spot fest.
Spots.
You don't want to spot fest. That's.
Yeah, you're not gonna. You're not going to just do those spots, but what you're going to do is you're going to, write the match to build up to these spots. And
True,
Adrian,
yeah.
sometimes you do want a spot fest.
Right. If it's a no DQ, a drag out, knockdown fight,
Yeah.
Lots of blood, lots of weapons, lots of pandemonium going on there.
That was
lots of overbooking.
Actually, that's something I haven't even breached yet, because Josh is supposed to be, as a character, a hardcore wrestler, and I don't know the first thing about, say, pacing one of those matches compared to a normal one. So far, all the ones I've actually written have been normal rules.
Yeah, we'll see.
So
In any match, you're going to have periods. You're going to have some periods of rest, right? So some places where it slows down a little. So if we want to transition,
even a knockdown drag out fight, I think would have a couple of rests in there.
Yeah,
so you don't burn
because
out.
it's gonna be Fast and Furious to start probably.
Yeah,
and then like Adrian and Lifer have been feuding for a
60
year,
years.
and they just really 60 years, sure, and they just really hate each other. Although if you guys have been feuding for 60 years, I don't know how much you're gonna really be able to do once you get in the ring. But it'll just be like punches and maybe some I don't know, hitting each other with your walkers or something.
Cane spots. Cane spots.
But, but did you say
Anyway.
train spots?
Throw him up.
Cane spots.
Cane.
Throw him out of his wheelchair.
Yeah. Is that what he does now?
No, not
But-
the.
Adrian turned heel earlier today.
I just say pain. But so anyway, you might come out with, stuff just gets heated quickly, and maybe they're just grabbing whatever they can to wail on each other and stuff. But then eventually, at some point, because the match is going to be taking its toll on people, and you need to sell.
And in real life,
You need to sell.
people would rest for a little bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly. And even,
if Lifer's been beating the crap out of Adrian with a chair, Lifer's been beating the crap out of Adrian with a chair, and Adrian is somehow able to finally drop kick the chair into Lifer, they're both going to be down for a minute.
Right.
Yeah, because Adrian's been taking this beating.
Yeah.
But okay, let's do a reverse thing. Let's say you don't drop kick him into the chair. Let's just say he's just beating you with the chair for a while, and then
He would admire his handiwork.
Yeah, okay, so then maybe he stops to admire his handiwork. He's got this devilish grin on his face and whatever. Maybe if Adrian's busted open, he does that thing where you wipe the blood off of his forehead and smear it on your own, whatever, something like that. Different stuff to like we said, to bring out the character, who the character is. Maybe Lifer's gonna stop and look around for something. Maybe he gets bored of hitting him with a chair. He's gonna look for something else to hit him with. Maybe he goes for a pin, and maybe he doesn't get the count. So maybe he'll argue with the referee, or maybe he'll
Adrian is known
think
for
about
kicking
what his
out of
next
chair.
move is.
Adrian is
They're all great
actually known
options.
for doing that to people who beat the crap out of him with a chair. It's usually not enough to put him away.
Well, I mean, it happens sometimes in wrestling nowadays.
Yeah.
Actually, it happens a lot in wrestling nowadays.
You gotta use more than the chair, man.
It's it used to be one shot with a chair would be
Now
enough.
it's 10.
And now it's hitting somebody with a chair is the way they treat it in real professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Sometimes is like you're hitting them with a pillow.
Yeah. Chairs are made of cardboard now.
Exactly. But I mean, and that's something to think about. That's something to think about too for if you're doing a regular match as opposed to a hardcore match or whatever.
And you want to sell the injuries too. You want to. If somebody's aiming towards the leg, you want to have them limp a little bit. You know, you want to have them hold their leg when they're down or something.
Right. Well, I mean, maybe not necessarily. Are you talking about in a pin, or are you talking about?
If
I think
someone
he's starting a new topic.
if someone does like a figure four to your leg, you're gonna limp away.
Oh yeah, exactly, yeah, absolutely. And there's different ways to get out of a figure four too. There's like I can think of like 3 of them off the top of my head.
Grabbing
I can
the
think
ropes,
of
turning it over.
I can think of. What was that?
I said grabbing the ropes for a rope break, turning them over to reverse to reverse it, tapping out, passing
Punching.
out, punching them out of it. Yeah, wiggling free.
But I'm saying like afterwards, like
passing out would be kind of like for the pin.
Yeah, for the finish.
Also
I'm
tapping
saying,
out
like,
too.
For the whole rest of the match, he should limp for a while.
Yeah, well, maybe not the whole rest of the match.
For a decent while.
Yeah, you're gonna have them. You are gonna have them limp around for a while, and it's gonna depend too on. Now, like probably what's gonna happen if following a figure four is that the person who had the other one in it, and depending on how it's gotten out of. If you do the reversal, then they're both probably going to be limping,
Right.
and then either one of them can attack the other one's leg. If you do like get to the ropes, then the one who had it on is probably going to be the one to attack the other one's leg. You know what I'm saying? So think about strategies, and this is something that we brought up last time.
It is.
Think about strategies. What's the strategy going to be for each wrestler? So, obviously,
If
we get to the point where there's a figure four leg lock. Go on, Adrian.
I said if you're facing somebody like my character, Adrian, you're probably going to be aiming for the legs because one of his chief strengths is his speed.
Exactly.
But you have to keep strength in mind. You have to keep weaknesses in mind, too. Like,
oh, yeah, like Adrian ain't going to be picking up, Pat Gordon Jr. you said was over 250?
He was 240 was his maximum. That might have been
like Adrian's not going to lift him up over his head and spin him over his head.
If Adrian's able to suplex him, he's going to literally use every ounce of strength he has to do it, and he's probably going to be on the ground, too, after doing a suplex to him.
And it should sell that. The match should kind of like sell that in a way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then it builds the excitement, too.
Yeah.
Definitely. Usually, whenever it's like a somebody who's like undersized doing some sort of move like that to a heavier opponent, I usually like to have the commentators kind of have a bit of a, oh my god, do you think he can actually pick him up? Can he pick him up? Like if I was watching a Josh Kennedy, I was doing a Josh Kennedy,
and then after it happens, then it's like, oh, you know what, strength. What strength?
Yeah, what strength, yeah.
Yeah, I think I did that with Jew Blazer in a recent match of his in Redemption, actually.
Well, yeah, because he's supposed to be like, 150 pounds or something.
Yeah, like Jew Blazer's about my real life size, so it's... He suplexed another male character. It might have been Jack Tillman. I don't remember what match it was, but he actually did a suplex, and I had the commentators going, wait, can he actually do this? Can he actually...
Yeah.
Oh my god, he actually did!
Tillman's not that oversized, is he? He's like, 220 pounds or something?
Yeah, but I mean, when you're talking about somebody 150 to
190,
still
190 to 220
weight difference, isn't it?
Yeah, but 190 to 220 isn't like really that much of a weight difference.
Yeah, 150
no, we were
to
talking
220.
150 to 220.
Oh, 150 to 220, yeah, that's like 70 pounds right there. So that's
the thing, so you got to sell that.
Yeah.
For what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of gives you some interesting scope to play with spots and pacing of the match, I think.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any more comments or questions, Callum? Because we kind of had this conversation before. And it would help to have a new input on it, kind of.
Yeah, so far we've pretty much just been rehashing everything we said in the last episode. I feel like we probably didn't quite cover all the information we did last time, which is a shame. I'm sure we'll get there.
I feel like Callum would have questions about it. And I'll take questions as we go.
Production note.
I was just gonna say real quick though. To be fair, nobody's ever heard the last episode, so
I'm just saying,
production note. We are currently at 54 minutes and 35 seconds.
What about 35 seconds?
I said production note. We are currently at 54 minutes and now 43 seconds.
Okay, so Yeah, so let's see if Callum has any questions then.
Right.
We're probably winding down soon.
Well, so with writing matches, what do you guys like to do to try and change things up in general? Because I've just been sort of completely improvising these things so far. I've been playing it very fast and loose, but I think as I get more experienced, I'll probably settle into a
when you say change
sort of
things
a routine for this.
When you say change things up, are you talking about mid-match? Or are you talking about writing matches in general?
Yeah, I'm talking about mid-match, so spots and things like that.
So,
like what kind of way do you like to think of things to?
All right,
what kind of things do you like to think of to make?
I'm going to use Adrian for an example. Let's say Adrian's facing someone along the lines of Matthew Shields. Shields has got the advantage for quite a bit. He's beating the crap out of Adrian. He's throwing suplexes, Germans, and neck breakers and body slams and everything like that on him. And something I will do to change things up, the way to change things up is usually to let Adrian get some sort of that might be when Adrian throws in his trademark move, Lightning Strike, which is basically just a super kick. Right there, and that just completely changes the momentum. So usually the good way to change things up is just think of something that's on their move list that has just completely changed the momentum of the match.
Okay, so I had taken his question differently. So you're talking about switching momentum, right? Switching control of the match. Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I meant it more in the sense of how you're making things interacting with each other and making them feel different.
Okay, so
but in terms of switching the momentum as well, that's a really valid point.
Yeah, Adrian makes a great point for switching momentum. Another thing that you can do is any other kind of something that can counter one of the moves, or ducking under, if somebody's got like a clothesline or whatever, something that somebody can duck under, something that they can counter. Maybe somebody goes for a suplex and you shift your weight and fall on top of them, or you get behind them, and then now you've got them in a position for one of your moves. So look and see how moves can play with one another. What can be a counter to what can be if you switch a positioning to get somebody taken by surprise. It's whatever, like that stuff that you can take them by surprise, throw in like a roundhouse kick or something out of nowhere, or a punch, or a desperation headbutt. Desperation headbutt is a good one. That's why, like, one of Pat Gordon Jr., one of his trademark moves was a headbutt, and he called it the Irish Kiss. And the whole point was,
and that's great.
Yeah, and the whole point was that it was supposed to be like a total desperation. I usually, when I'm making a character, I'll usually give them something that they can do out of desperation to change momentum. In terms of making them unique, one thing is to watch different wrestling matches and pay attention. Try to pay attention. Try to take mental notes to things that you like and see, and look for, kind of like, store that up in your mind and look for different times that you can apply something based on the characters.
He has the WWE Network. What would you recommend matches for him to watch?
I would recommend that he watches Lucha Underground. There's a lot of good stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in their archives, actually. A lot of good stuff is going to be in their archives. I think they've got all the WCW stuff. And so if you've got, like, Steamboat versus Flair, if you've got, like, anything with, like, Bret Hart in it, Mr. Perfect, Roddy Piper, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of stuff that you can look for and watch and say.
And again, not all matches need to be 5-star Bret Hart matches.
Yeah. Exactly, but you can find little inspirations. You can think of things from. Keep your eye out, like, anywhere for ideas. Anywhere. Keep your eye out anywhere for an idea.
I was once writing a battle royal
12 years ago.
I was go ahead and tell your story first.
Okay, 12 years ago, I was writing Max Hopper versus Brock Metzer. And their storyline was that they had been friends recently. Max Hopper started hanging out with these other characters more, Sean Hart and John Katz Jr. And so then Brock Metzer was starting to get jealous, and so they were getting like a feud was starting to boil up. But it wasn't to the point where it was, at its head yet. It was kind of just the feud was in its infancy. Well, they had a match against one another. I was talking to the handler in an AIM chat, and his Brock Metzer had a move, Texas Cloverleaf. It was a Texas Cloverleaf was in his move set. So I had him, at the time I had Max Hopper was in the Texas Cloverleaf, and I was, telling him where I was in the match, and, like having the crowd, Max Hopper was trying to get the crowd to cheer him on so that he could get some extra adrenaline and get going. Well, the handler in the AIM chat started cheering for Max Hopper, right? And I was like, this is, you're cheering against your own character. So then, we had this idea to have Brock Metzer start cheering and clapping along with the crowd. So he's clapping his hands, Max Hopper, Max Hopper. And so, well, if he's clapping his hands and the move is a Texas Cloverleaf, he's let go of the move. So he let go of the move to chant and clap his hands for Max Hopper, and Max Hopper was free. So you look for, and that's something that I'd never even seen before in wrestling. That
I've not heard of anything like that.
So did Max react?
Yeah, I mean, like at first he was like, kind of still sitting there. At first he was still kind of like writhing around and stuff. And he was like, "Wait a minute." He's like, "I'm free." So it's so he like gets up and he gets back going on like the offense or whatever, something like that, whatever it was. Anyway, I like when I look at that match, like honestly, like I just kind of like scroll to that one part and then just like read that part, and then I'm like, yeah, I'm proud of that. Yeah, exactly.
Great, yeah.
But see, like not everything, and there's a word that I'm glad you brought up, because not everything has to be original. Okay? Unique. I like to say unique because there's a huge difference between unique and original. Original is the first time anything's ever been done, right?
Yeah, I think if we worry about that in this game, we should have all packed up 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean, honestly, like if you worry about that in a lot of stuff, like, yeah, but that's another time for another show or something. But it's good. It's okay to not be original as long as you're being unique. But you can look for influences, look for ideas, basically anywhere. And if it's something that fits the characters involved or fits the story that you're trying to tell, pop that in. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a wrestling move.
That transitions to the story I was going to tell. I was writing a battle royal for Exodus Pro a few years ago, and it was a character that was that John, the Fed head at the time, was wanted to do a spot very similar to Kofi Kingston from the Royal Rumble. And so you can find inspiration in all sorts of weird ways, because it's like this guy just doing a handstand and getting back to the ring without his feet technically touching the ground, was a sick idea.
Yeah.
So you can find inspiration in so many different areas.
I agree.
I remember running a battle royal, and I'm not going to get too much into this because we all know how it turned out. There was like a lot of negativity involved after, but actually like even before. But anyway, no, Callum wasn't around for this. Okay, Callum. No, so this thing turned out like absolutely wonderful. Everybody loved it.
I don't remember this either.
It went perfectly smooth, and there was no drama whatsoever. So
Oh
anyway,
yeah, no, because that's not something that happens in this game ever.
Oh no, definitely not.
I believe.
Callum wasn't around for this, guys. So don't tell him.
I don't know. I don't know what's
really,
going on either.
Yeah,
This is
I
half
wasn't
the
born
room is
yet.
clueless.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
but there was he wasn't in e-putting yet though. But there was somebody. It was actually one of Pedro's characters. I don't know, Callum, if you know Pedro. I think Lifer and Adrian, you guys both know
I
Pedro.
vaguely heard the name. Yeah.
UKWF. He runs UKWF.
Oh yeah. No,
He's
no,
got-
I do know him. Yeah.
Yeah, various.
Okay, I don't know
characters.
him.
I know him quite well. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But so-
him.
you know Pedro, Adrian.
No, I don't. Don't. Like, apparently not.
Everybody knows. Do you know? I can't remember her Twitter is at I am Jackie M.
Nope.
Do you know who is the midget that he had? Or wait,
Hey.
ooh, sorry, little person. Who is the
Challenged.
vertically challenged? The little person that he had. It was Vanilla Midget or something like that.
Don't know that one either.
Do you know John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt?
His name was my name too.
His name is my name too.
I don't know half of these ones you're pulling out here.
Would you say you don't know half of them, or you do?
No, I don't.
You don't? Yeah, he had and the guy and like you said, Lifer, that from the song John Jacobs Jr. Jingleheimer Schmidt, whatever. You know, so like his part of his character was that like he hated his name because of people teasing him for that, and he called himself, I forget what he called himself, Triple J or something like that. But
I think I remember Triple J.
Yeah, okay, so Triple J. So that was John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. So,
Incredible.
but he had, I don't know, Pedro's had a bunch of characters, so I'm sure that you've probably at least seen one or more of them on Twitter. Maybe you don't know that it's Pedro. But
That happens a lot.
yeah, he had this character, like whatever the character's Vanilla Midget or something like that. I'd have to go look. But
Another vertically challenged person.
yeah, so
Totally challenged.
well, it's in his name, man. Come on, I think. But anyway,
Battle Royal.
so like I wanted to do like a similar. You remember the one where like Kofi Kingston went out, like I think he landed on the barricade or something. But I had his guy get put out all the way into like somebody's lap in the first row, and then like I think they kind of like helped throw him back into the ring or something like that, whatever it was. And so yeah, I mean, you know, give somebody a spot like that, but that's something, you know, you can get inspiration from stuff that you see in matches. Obviously, if you're writing a match of a match type, watch the match type. And this is something that Adrian mentioned last time that you weren't around for and nobody heard, was about tropes, that there's going to be certain tropes that, you know, you're probably going to want to put a few of them in. I don't feel that you necessarily absolutely have to, but let's be honest.
They're tools for you to use. Tropes are tools for you to use.
Yeah. And let's be honest. Like,
you don't want to go over.
You know,
I was going to say something.
okay, go ahead,
I was just going to say, I think that ties into what we were saying about originality and that not necessarily being having that not being the same as being unique. They're sort of two different things. You can make it interesting by using tropes still. At the same time, it's not. You don't have to be doing everything for the first time.
And there are some things that people will feel cheated if they don't see, and there are some things that like you're just gonna like really want to do. Like I've got a cage match coming up.
Oh yeah.
There's a one dropkick minimum for Adrian matches.
What was that?
There's a one dropkick minimum for Adrian matches.
Yeah, exactly. One dropkick minimum for Adrian matches. I've got a cage match coming up, so guess what some of the stuff is, you know, without giving spoilers, guess what some of the stuff is that's going to happen during the cage match.
I bet someone's going to try to get out of the cage.
Well, there's that.
I'm
guessing there's probably going to be at least one move that's probably going to involve being smacked into the cage.
Yep. And
is someone
getting
going to
people's
jump off the
faces
cage?
raked against the cage and stuff like that.
Jumping off the cage?
or at least
I'm sorry, is Jeff Hardy in this match?
Something like that.
So there's going to be a lot of the good old fashioned stuff that you see in the cage, and it's stuff because that's stuff that like honestly that I want to see in there because I love seeing that stuff in a cage match. Somebody's going to bleed. At least one person's going to bleed.
Oh, of course.
Usually, if you want to see it, other people want to see it too.
Yeah.
Typically.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, this whole game is us just basically like
nerding out,
writing whatever the hell we wanted to see, and then hoping other people are along for the ride. So,
keyword hoping.
Like a giant octopus with a monocle.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to see it, and I'm like, I know there's got to be somebody else. Lifer absolutely fell in love with the giant octopus.
Yeah.
And like,
I'm not usually into like unrealistic stuff, but it was just so ridiculous and funny.
It's an octopus in a monocle. What's not to love?
Exactly.
Yeah, he's Dr. Octopus. He's kind of.
We need to get back on track, please.
Yeah, we're off of it again.
But yeah, I mean, like, talking. Okay, one thing is talking to other people is a great source of ideas. It's a great source of ideas. Watching wrestling matches is a great source of ideas.
You could listen to this chat right now. You can listen to this podcast.
Yeah, listen to this podcast is a great source of ideas.
Everyone's
I'm not sure how people
would
know that, but without listening to a podcast first.
Yeah, I guess we should have led off with that, maybe.
Right.
Yeah, perhaps so. I think by this point they've probably all gone. No, they've not come up with anything good now. They're just talking about octopuses with monocles. So.
The good information was in the first hour of the episode.
But so I mean, you can find good sources of material, just like writing a promo or writing a CD piece or whatever. You can find. Go ahead.
Here's something we haven't mentioned. It's kind of obvious, but I feel like it needs to be said. I feel like the more matches you kind of like volunteer to write, the more matches you end up writing, the better you get.
Oh yeah, practice.
You don't have to follow a certain style that we're saying. As long as it works for you, as long as it flows okay and other people seem to like it, I think you're golden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Yeah.
Because, I'm saying, like...
And we're not talking about the guy with the creepy van that's offering you some wink wink pills. He wants you to experiment with them. We're talking about, doing weird things in your matches.
Well, those pills always helped me write my matches. That's all I'm going to say.
No, hang on.
But, yeah, I mean, don't be afraid to, try out new things in your matches. Don't feel that things have to be like a cookie cutter or whatever. Just do sort of, tell the story. Focus on the story. Focus on the characters, and focus on the match type. That's honestly like we could do like a whole program on different match types. We could probably get like a week's worth of programming on different match types. But think about the different match types, the match type that your character's in. Think about the stuff that is available to dream up new stuff. Don't be afraid to dream up new stuff and try it out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about creativity, really.
I recently thought about a cage match, last man standing.
There you go. That'd be
My
cool.
eyebrows raised since we're on an audio format.
In fact, yeah, I had a similar thought of something like that, like fusing some gimmick match, I can't remember what it was, with a last man standing stipulation as well, because I thought that would get a bit intense.
Exactly, yeah.
I could see a cell match doing that.
Yeah.
Last man standing inside of a Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
anyway.
But yeah, I mean, think of not necessarily, aside from different match types, which those are some great ideas, but think of just think of different stuff that you can do. Maybe, something that you haven't seen before that you've always thought would be cool to see, or, maybe you get some idea about something from, wherever. You've got a Falls Count Anywhere match. I had a Falls Count Anywhere match once where, actually, I think I might have done this twice, where Max Hopper's opponent took them into the concession area and tried to put his face in the deep fryer. Now they didn't succeed. I had like a food fight break out. Yeah, I know, that would be awful. But I had like he'd be
the catering
finger
table.
looking good, I guess. But
but I feel like you shouldn't be afraid to like do some comedy stuff in that kind of match.
Yeah.
I kind of told myself the next Falls Count Everywhere match I ever write is going to involve leaving the arena.
Oh yeah, actually, somebody wrote a match for Josh and somebody else in a really heated feud where it was Falls Count Anywhere, and they went completely outside, and then what happened was they ended up driving off in a truck.
Yeah.
Still like punching at each other, and then it cut back to the rest of the matches, and then throughout the night it kept cutting back to them fighting in a department store, and then it ended in like a bar where they interrupted a game of people playing snooker, and then it ended with a pile driver through the snooker table.
Quick question: was this a real match, or was this an e-fighting match?
No, an e-fighting match.
Okay, because there was I do remember hearing about I think somebody linked me to it once. A real match.
That's what I was about to say. Damn it, Mike.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I was about to say my inspiration for this was Booker
truck.
T and Stone Cold in the grocery store.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing to replicate stuff like that.
Well, yeah, it was a kind of a twist on. Clearly, they'd taken inspiration, whoever wrote that match, from some of those spots, and then sort of tied it together and put it into the show in that way, and it was.
And there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from stuff like that.
And I remember doing FCA matches like in the late '90s, early 2000s that ended up like outside the arena, and like somebody won by throwing the other one in front of like a car coming in on.
Oh damn!
Yeah.
So they like would throw people like, because like while you're going out of the arena, they're doing things like fighting in stairwells and stuff like that. And that was actually inspiration that I got from the inspiration for that. I think I got from like the old T&M wrestling simulator. But anyway, like you throw them down the stairs and whatever, and fight in the stairwells, and then you go through so much, and you need something big to finish it off. So you're like, okay, here comes the car.
I thought that was TEW simulator.
There's T&M is the Booker game, or I'm sorry, TEW. TEW is the Booker game. TNM was a match simulator made by Oliver Kopp, TNM7.com, if you want to go look it up. And a lot of people back in the day...
Later?
Yeah, I'll give you the link for that later. Back in the day, a lot of feds used to use match simulators like TNM7 or Zeus. But anyway,
Zeus.
Yeah, Adrian, remember. I think you might have come in at like the tail end of that, Adrian.
Yeah, I did.
It feels like. But, so anyway... Yeah, and there was a time when I was Max Hopper in 2007, maybe, was investigating the disappearance of Ectocooler off of grocery store shelves, and it's just like it apparently was just like it was just completely gone. So he was doing a storyline investigating the disappearance of Ectocooler, and he was feuding with somebody that had been this character Showtime that had been they had been friends for a couple of years by this point. So yeah.
I have to go. So either like we cut it now, or I could just leave and leave you guys to keep going on your own.
Okay.
We're at the
what do you guys want to
1:19:33 mark right now.
The what?
It's getting kind of late for me as well. It's midnight over here. So.
Yeah, we've got almost an hour and 20 minutes worth of material here.
I feel like it's a lot of material.
Yeah,
we covered a lot of ground.
Hopefully, you guys have all found this to be informative. We'll probably try to get together to do another one and
if you
get
want
some more tips. Yeah, get some more tips and some more ideas, things like that. If anybody has any questions or anything like that you want us to address, specifically involved in writing matches, or you want us to come up with some ideas or something for a match that you've got coming up, just leave a comment. Leave a comment below the video. What was that, Lifer?
What would you like us to talk about next? I'm talking to the audience.
Well, we're probably going to cover match types next.
Yeah, match types would be good. Well, do we still have? It kind of feels like we still have some more to go in like the basics department, but I could probably get into match types next.
Yeah.
I gotta go. Okay.
All right. We'll see you, Lifer. But if anybody has any further questions or comments or anything, if there's something that you feel that we've left out, then put it in the comment section below. Don't forget to check out xwabattlezone.com and look over their thread in the handbook section. Scroll down and there will be a thread about how do I write matches. Thank you, Lifer and Adrian and Callum for joining us, and thank you, Adrian, for producing this time so that we can make sure to get this one out.
Remember to have your pet spayed and neutered.
All right, Bob Barker.
And for everybody, goodbye, and we hope that you've found this informative, and tune in next time.